This week's op-ed was inspired by Dave Lifson. Dave is a product leader. He and I actually we did startups together and shared an office space in New York many, many years ago. And he's someone whose thought leadership I pay attention to and who I think is just a great thinker in our space. And he's been sharing a lot of thoughts on LinkedIn. And this week he wrote a little piece and shared it talking about uh, sort of, are you matching the project complexity with the level of seniority of the team that you have? And and he was talking about how, and I'll just share my screen because I want to highlight a couple things here. Talking about how with APMs and PMs they can handle execution, but not a lot of ambiguity. But at the more senior level, they can take on a lot of noise and ambiguity and figure it out. And his point was that if you've got a project that has a lot of ambiguity, but you've only got a more junior person to help, you've got to lean in and either provide more scaffolding or actually directly help them. But what it got me thinking about was just how much I like the principal PM job. And what I mean by principal, it probably has different titles out there, but I mean the non-manager track for a product manager. This emerged in the engineering space a number of years earlier, and it's starting to occur in the product management field as well, right? Typically, in a lot of companies, you move ahead and you get paid more when you manage more people. And the basic rationale for that is that you've now got more economic leverage tied to that person, so you could justify paying them more money. But in product businesses, there you could find economic leverage in a lot of other places as well. And so the way I think about this, if it's a role that you think is interesting as a leader and you're trying to think about how to justify it, or even should you justify it, what I think about is like a typical project band. A typical product project that you take on is going to have a normal outcome range. It's going to, on the low end, it's only going to deliver a little bit of value, possibly a little bit of negative value. Uh, and on the upper end, it's going to be delivering some sort of returns to the business. But there's a pretty normal band for a lot of projects that you do. It's always a range, but there's a band. Some projects have significant downside risk if you screw it up. And some projects have significant upside potential if you do it really well, if you innovate. And the way you want to think about the principal role is, do you have projects where you can get economic leverage by covering the downside risk and the upside potential, right? Then you're going to get the economic leverage that you need from an individual as opposed to from their execution, as opposed to how many people they have reporting to them. So just to, talk about a few different project types as examples, right? Here's what I might think of as a conversion funnel optimization. Like at Meetup, I had a growth team. They were working on optimizing the funnel. That was important. But the way I thought about it was they were leveraging a lot of data. So they had a lot to work with. They knew where the problems were. They could see that in the data. They can run experiments. There were ways to limit the downside, but we weren't probably going to be creating some magical upside as well. And so this required good execution, but it didn't have the noise, didn't have the ambiguity, and it didn't require a really, really experienced, safe pair of hands product manager, right? Take a different project, which was exploring a new revenue model for the company. In some ways, I think that the normal outcome range is smaller than your typical project. And there was huge upside if we managed to get it right, and huge downside risk if we screwed up how we executed it. And actually, for this project, I took one of my VPs who had a number of people reporting to him, but was a really talented product person in their own right. And I asked them to actually just act as the product manager on this role. It was so important. And so I basically asked a manager to flip into the principal, basically a principal seat. But this would have been a perfect thing to have a principal on payroll on the team to be able to throw at, because the upside and the downside potential was so significant. Now, take as a counterexample, those two examples come from a product company. Take Neo Innovation, which was the consulting firm that I led with, and my colleagues were people like David Bland and Jeff Gotheld and Josh Seiden, and we had an amazing, talented group of people. Many of the alumni have gone on to extremely wonderful careers and high-profile companies. But the thing about our economics was that, we were working on innovation projects for companies. And yeah, we could do those well, we could do those badly. We wanted to do those well. If we screwed them up, there was some downside risk in terms of a project getting cut short or in terms of, bad word of mouth out there. The upside was pretty limited, right? We weren't making more money if the project was better versus whether it was worse, as opposed to some of the product work that we were doing at Meetup. And so the very economics of this consulting model that we had was that I could justify paying a lot more to someone who managed a lot of people. I could justify paying a lot more to someone who was really good at sales and bringing in work, but I couldn't justify paying a lot more to someone who's just really good at execution, right? Because this green bar was so small, right? The economic leverage wasn't there, as opposed to, as I say, take a product company example where there are most likely going to be a project here or there where it looks like this as opposed to like this. The question is, within your company, do you have those projects? And if you do, then you have a story to tell. Now, this role is a little unusual, and it's going to be a head scratcher at first for your CFO, possibly your CEO, who's going to be like, wait, you want me to pay how much money to someone who doesn't manage anyone else? And so for you to justify it in your own mind, you've got to think through the economic leverage, right? The upside and the downside potential. And if you really believe that you've got that there and that safe pair of hands, that incredible senior execution person is going to deliver that economic value to your business, now you have a way to explain this to your CFO. Now, you could visualize it like I just did, but frankly, I'd probably put it in numbers. Create a little, I'm always talking about mini models, but just create a little mini example about one of the projects you have in mind and what either the upside or downside or both potential range could be if not in the hands of someone really capable and really senior, like extraordinarily capable and extraordinarily senior. And then that can help justify in math, which is the language that CFOs speak, a high salary for someone that's really senior. So anyway, that's it for this week. Dave, thanks for getting me thinking about this. I hope it's been a little interesting op-ed for you. I'm going to sign off. Thank you.